A University of Victoria professor says he's uncovered new documents that show the City of Vancouver was more involved in one of the darkest points of its history, the sale of Japanese Canadian homes after the Second World War. Tina Lovegreen brings us that story.
And when I look at this, I look at how it was important that we got dressed up and had a family picture taken. So there's
a happy memory from a dark time, one where her family and thousands like them were forced from their homes. They were among the 22,000 Japanese Canadians stripped of their rights and forced from their homes during the Second World War. Despite that, Vivian Rignenstadt remembers her parents as living with a sense of pride and dignity.
So my father went off to road camp. The women and children, my mother and the other women in our families, were put into the barns at Hastings Park.
The federal government ordered them to leave coastal BC with a promise that they would be able to come back to the life they knew before.
Before they left, they did like many other families. They hid things like cameras and valuables, and they hid them in the walls and things like that because the government had assured them, you'll be coming back.
But the City of Vancouver declared their homes to be slums, and those homes were soon sold. The city even went as far as to call for the outright deportation of Japanese Canadians, something it formally apologized for in 2013. But now, a University of Victoria professor says newly unearthed documents show that the city had more of a hand in those forced sales than once thought.
So they sent building inspectors, health inspectors, electrical inspectors in a campaign to condemn the housing that was being rented in order to push the federal government towards selling that property instead.
More than 500 properties along Powell Street and other parts of the city were sold, all without the consent of the homeowners and at a price that was well below market value.
He took knots from trees.
Rignenstadt says it's important that time not be forgotten.
These stories need to be taught, they need to be learned. It's Canadian history, and we learn from our history.
The research findings were presented to a city councillor. While nothing concrete is in the works, some ideas were exchanged, such as potentially working with the Heritage Committee to put plaques to identify and mark the buildings. But of course, lots of things need to be worked out, such as property rights. Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Vancouver.